No injury, thankfully, and that's why I took a step back.
We'll see you on Thursday, or how you feeling?
We're going to take it day by day.
Your jacket on good there, Chase? You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst. I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language. And I created the #1 online body language course, bodylanguagetactics.com, with Greg Hartley. Mark?
I'm Mark Bowden. I'm an expert in human behavior and body language. I help people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility every time they communicate, including some of the leaders of the G7. Chase.
Hey, I'm Chase Hughes. I did 20 years in the U.S. military. I published the #1 best-selling book in behavior profiling, interrogation, influence, and persuasion. I teach intelligence operatives and the general public in the same. Greg?
Greg Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator, interrogation instructor, resistance to interrogation instructor. Put together this body language tactics course with Scott Rouse. I've written 10 books on body language and behavior, and I spend most of my time on Wall Street and corporate America.
All right. Well, today we're going to talk about Simone Biles, and she's the gymnast in the Olympics who's had a couple of problems. Greg, why don't you explain what the situation is?
Yeah, so in the nutshell, aside from being like Superwoman, she's had a problem that the Olympic judges have decided that she has a thing she can do that no other woman has ever done. Only men have finished this move, and I won't try to remember the name of the move. But they've decided they won't score her up to that level. They'll score her like all the rest of her moves. So that's the beginning of the big controversy with the Olympic Commission. And she was doing a vault, which is her big to do. That's her best thing, I understand. Somebody will correct me, but that's what I understand is her best move. And in that vault, she stuck a landing poorly, and she came off. She briefly conferred with trainers and doctors, went over and pulled herself out of the competition. She's been beaten up by lots of media folks, by lots of other folks for being last minute pulling out and leaving this team to go and compete on its own. And so what we're looking at here will be a combination of things. We're going to look at starting with her baseline, what she normally looks like. Then we'll see her in the air land that bad stick of that move, look at her body language there. Then we'll move into some conversations with her, see her talk to her team, then see interviews with her to figure that out. What we're looking for is you'll hear as we go through here, but really good opportunity to look at somebody who is, when we talk about normal, there ain't nothing normal. This is the best gymnast in the world. Now, she still has body language that we look at on a normal or not normal basis, but miraculous through the air kind of movement. So there you go.
Yeah. Why don't we do this? Why don't we look at this clip where it's explained what's going on, what the problem is here, the problem they're giving her. So let's do that real quick.
Lovely. Before we go there, by the way, do subscribe. You know, it'll cost you nothing. You'll get to see more of us. And I'm going to put down below a whole bunch of social media links as well that you can get involved with as well. So click on some of those, subscribe.
How do you know you've become one of the all-time greats? When a sport has new rules to keep you from winning too much. That's exactly what's happening to Simone Biles. The iconic gymnast continues to push the bounds of gymnastics and physics. The 5-time Olympic medalist is so dominant that the rules of elite gymnastics intentionally put her at a scoring disadvantage. In an effort to deter other gymnasts from trying skills they are not physically capable of doing, the International Gymnastics Federation watered down the value of a new element Biles plans to do. It really shows she's in a league of her own.
So first thing we'll take a look at is her baseline. We'll watch 2 short videos. We'll look at one and we'll talk about it just for a second. And we'll tell you about her baseline, what we're seeing in that. So you'll have an idea of how things change when she's under stress or when she isn't stressed.
You think about your age?
Girl, all the time.
You do? When?
Every day. I'm reminded of my age here. The kids remind me how old I am every day.
What are they
saying? I have a Facebook and I'm so old and I'm 24. And actually, yesterday we were in practice and they're like, Simone, how long have you been doing the sport? And I was like, 17 years. And they're like, I'm not even 17 yet. And I'm like, to be young again.
Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, okay, so first of all, let's look at the vocal quality. I would describe it as rapid, as bright, and with downward inflection. So downward would suggest in this situation, she's very, very certain of what she's saying. Again, that rapidity of it and the brightness of it suggests confidence, certainty. So, I'm going to keep that kind of rhythm in my mind. A couple of things I want to pay attention to here. When she says the word old, I see a little more kind of grief going to the forehead. I'm not saying that she's literally grieving for her age, but there is some sorrow or stress around the idea of being older now. She refers to her teammates as kids. Okay, so again, it feels to me like she's in her baseline has moved herself away from the bulk of the rest of her team, and it's something around the age. I think it's fair to say at 24, she's by no means a child. She's a woman at this point, and so very, very different from her teammates, who certainly many of them would be still classified as minors, as children, as often girls, not women, essentially. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, a lot of the same stuff. I'll leave the stuff that you've already mentioned. She's animated. Her brow is up. Her eyes are enlarged. She's making good eye contact. I always say with Bill Clinton, he's the flirt, the best. He draws people in. She's got that too. Great eye contact. When she breaks eye contact, she's immediately back. She's feeling the space between them, and she's connecting with this person. You can see it very easy. She's got this big beaming smile of recognition at the point of her age. And this forehead up is more of an illustrator than a request for approval in this case. So good, great baseline. Cadence is boom, 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 and we'll look for a deviation in that. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, she shows very small latency, which is the time between a question and a person's response. She makes solid eye contact most of the time. She's not looking around to access a lot of her answers. And her body is mostly opening instead of closing. So if you had to break all body language down into two categories, your body's closing up or it's opening up. So her gestures are very large. She's opening up when she's speaking. She's making good eye contact, and then a genuine positive smile, keeping her face is directed toward the person asking the questions. Scott?
Yeah, I agree. And her voice, her vocal tone is soft. Everything's fluid. Her movements are fluid. Smiles real big. You can tell what's going on emotionally with her. Very easy with that face. And I can't add much more to what you guys have already said. So let's move on to the next one.
Go.
So how is it that you stay motivated?
I'm trying to be better than I was at the last meet,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to beat myself. And sometimes you get caught up in that moment, and it's just scary because I go out and I'm like, can I repeat what I did last year, last time, last Olympics? And so now I'm doing things that were unimaginable to the sport and even for myself. And it's honestly crazy, but I'm really excited because I feel like I've pushed my limits.
All right. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, here she starts off, she internalizes a little feeling, and when she talks about, she shows a little stress. She purses her lips at the end to say that's that when she's done with a thought. But when she hits something stressful to discuss, she says, pushed my limit. And that, I think, may cause her some stress. When you're her and, everybody is admiring you and calling you the greatest of all time and you're 24, and I have no concept what it's like to peak in my career at 24. Can't imagine any of us do. So when you get to that point and there's that much pressure on you, I think she's showing right here because her cadence shifts just a little and you see her break eye contact in a different way. It just shows that there's something that she actually is feeling instead of her just doing what she was doing earlier. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to see a baseline deviation when she's feeling something, when she's feeling some stress. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, she's not closed, but she's shutting down just a little bit more because she's thinking a little bit more about that answer. So she's still fluid. I agree with you. You can see emotionally exactly what's going on with her. She's very expressive. And like I said before, her diction is spot on. That's one thing about her. Listen to her throughout this thing. Man, rarely do you run across somebody whose diction is that on point. You can hear everything, every consonant, I'll listen for things like that. Mark, what do you got?
So you'll see a bit of nose wrinkling that she does here. I'm going to, and we could infer all kinds of stuff around that, but I'm just going to discount it because it could be the mirroring of the interviewer who's doing a lot of kind of big nose wrinkling. So, I just want to point that out for you, just to go, check out always what other parties are doing in a video so you can rule out sometimes some of the gestures, some of the face, because it may well be just natural mirroring, trying to get on with whoever's doing the interview. And she is a great interview. She is a great entertainer. And so we would expect her to want to join in with some of the faces that are going on. More upward inflection we get from her this time on unimaginable in the sport and crazy. And so there's upward inflection in where she's pushing towards and what isn't known, and then downward inflection of I feel like I've pushed my limits, and a big downward inflection there. So she is very certain when she's very clear when she's certain, and she seems to be very clear when she's not certain of stuff as well. Interesting there that she says I've pushed my limits rather than I'm still pushing my limits, or I'm pushing my limits. So again, just paying attention to the theme there of is she saying her limits are now, she's gone as far as she can go? Don't know. Chase, what do you got on this one?
A lot of the very similar stuff to you guys. The facial expression on the interviewer here is very unusual. And I think there was some mirroring going on there for sure. That was the first line of my notes here. And her blink rate is normal throughout the whole thing. It looks like an average blink rate. And I think the up talk at the ends of her sentences is very normal for people that age. And I think that's just part of her baseline. I do think that when she says she pushed her limits, the tone goes down. There's a little bit of distaste, and I think some disagreement there. Her head's thrown back. She breaks eye contact from 5 o'clock to 2 o'clock, back to 5 o'clock again. There's an elated expression on her face that drops, that disappears. If you watch this back again, you can see it if you go in slow-mo, or if you just take a look at her face when she's doing that. You can see that. And there's immediate mouth closure after this statement and some lip compression. I think she disagrees with the fact that she pushed her limits, because as we're going to see, she has a tendency to be highly self-critical. And we're going to see a lot of that maybe coming up here. There's an interesting thing that we're going to see here. There is something called a shift of referential index. While she's speaking about weaknesses, it's the difference between saying I and you. So I did all these things, and when you work too hard or when you get stressed out, she shifts to the word you when talking about weaknesses, which I think also speaks to her tendency to be self-critical and probably this culture of hiding suffering that is likely rampant in the Olympics. That's all I got.
Yeah, good detail.
Wow.
Very uncharacteristic vault for Simone, but it looked like she got almost lost in the air.
Did you see that, though? Holy smokes.
Crazy.
Just flipping off that thing once would be a miracle.
Just the run up for me.
No,
just
it's the landing that's the miracle.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so this is a really good indicator for me. I see sorrow with a slightly upturned brow at the end when she comes off this thing. I mean, just miraculous. All this athletic ability that people have surprised me. Her lips are pursed and set, and she is looking down into her right. I associate down right with emotional accessing. And when a person's feeling a lot of emotion, they do that, their head tips. But I don't usually see two things that I see together here. One is those lips are pursed and her jaw is set. That I see as disappointment and determination in the same movement. I think by now she's decided, I'm not going to make a mistake. That's that. And you can see when she walks off, she's doing what she has to do, and she's walking off there with everything together. Her respiration is up. Her pace is, her movement is almost robotic, and she's locked down. When she steps off that platform, watch her go and take a deep breath. I mean, yeah, she just did something athletic, but I think it's more that she was contained so much when she comes out there. And then I see real sadness as she steps off there because you see sides of her mouth down, and then her hands are on her hips. I think that's decision. She's finished, and she's made her decision exactly what's going to happen there. That's what I got. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, lovely. So she does something that a friend of mine back in London used to call giving it lemon, which is this sucking on a lemon, sour taste. It's not quite the sour taste that we get here. The lips push forward. And so it's a strong sense of distaste and disagreement. So there's a big sense as she walks off as that was negative, what just happened. I mean, for us looking at it, you just go, it's shockingly stunning. Even when it's your idea, it's her idea of bad. It's just phenomenal. Understand, this is the most watched Olympic event. The women's gymnastics is watched more than, to my understanding, more than the 100 meters. The public, I think, see it as the pinnacle of entertainment, spectacle, and athleticism. So we're looking here at one of the greatest athletes ever and most watched. So, you know, I can't imagine the stress that goes on here. We get that giving it lemon, total distaste at what happened. Greg, you're right, hands on hips. I was trying to get a look at it because I think what happens is it's not this, it comes back like this. So the line of energy is broken here, and just do that for yourself at home and go, is this somebody who's feeling strong right now? Or is this somebody who has kind of gone, well, that's it, I'm done? Make your decision just based on copying that and seeing the feeling that you get from that. Now, your feelings are not always their feelings, but it's a good place to start, is to mirror the body language that you see and see what comes up for you, because this is quite interesting. That's what I got for you on that one. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, got a lot of the same as you guys. She comes off of there. You can see it right in her mouth. And I think the hip movement is very interesting. And I've heard one body language expert, I can't remember who it is, refer to that as an anti-embrace posture, that you cannot be hugged by another person. I wish I could credit that, who I heard that from. But I think it's interesting that there's a few ways we can put our hands on our hips. She hides her hands. And it's almost as if she's pushing herself forward on her back. And typically, if someone's thumbs are forward when they're on the hips, this denotes that there is some curiosity present in the situation. If their thumbs are back, that's more of a dominance in a good way or a bad way. It could be both. But that's more of a dominance assertion right there. That's all I got there. Scott?
All right. Once she lands, then she comes off. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Conor McGregor when he's walking around before the fight. He gets those arms slinging. I think what's happened here is it's not she's fighting her confidence against what's just happened. And apparently, like we all see that, go, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. But apparently that's something that didn't work. So, and it's a big deal. She knows it didn't work. What was supposed to happen didn't happen perfectly. So she's trying to keep her confidence up. That's why she got that head back a little bit, and she has those arms swinging. But at the same time, I think we're seeing anger with herself with that. And the pursed lips, they're also pursed. If you slow it down and look at it frame by frame, you'll see they're pursed to the side just a little bit. That indicates that she sees a different outcome than what happened. It's very common when you see this, and you'll see this in people who are bowling, people who are, a couple of years ago, there was a gymnast a few years ago that did the very same, had a problem like that, and there's a famous picture of her on the net doing the same thing with except to a greater degree with her lips. But that usually indicates they saw a different outcome than what happened. They disagree with it, and it also denotes frustration in that person that they're feeling. We see once she walks off, we see it got pretty interesting there as well, because she does a tongue. Some people say it's a tongue jut. It's not a tongue jut. She brings her tongue out, and she puts it up at the top of her teeth as she's walking down. A lot of times you'll see that when a person is frustrated. You'll see somebody, it's close to say, oh, she's biting her tongue and she went down. People will do this when they're getting away with something. They feel like they've just done something they shouldn't have done, but they're getting away with it. In this case, she's pushing it on the top of her teeth, and that indicates that she's doesn't agree with what just happened. There's a problem there. There's an issue there, and she needs... it's a psychological problem for her. In other words, it's something that she needs to be soothed psychologically, and that's what you usually see. It's very common with that. psychological comfort. And also to note she's struggling with something, which is everything we've just seen just then. And when she starts talking to the coach, she walks up, everything changes at that point. She slows down a little bit. When she comes up to her, she just sort of stops, and the coach starts talking, and she's totally in a submissive role there. She even goes down just a little bit, and take a look at that when you see her talking to her. So things change dramatically from when she lands to the time she gets to the coach, because I'm sure she's hurt inside on that, and psychologically, again, she needs that comforting, which only your coach can do at that point. So there's a lot going on there, a whole lot happening there.
I think some of that was the coach taking her by the actual neck, which I thought Mark was going to go into tigers. And talk about.
She barely touches her neck, though. Look at that.
There's no grip on there.
Yeah. Did you see? I think there was in the judo a coach grab the athlete before she went on, shake her, slap her on. Clearly that's the routine. That's the routine that like, okay, shake me, slap me, I'll go on, I'll do the job. I think it was Russian team, may have been somewhere else. Anyway, that was an interesting piece of nonverbal.
Coach Hartley, were you going to say something?
I can say I'm qualified to be a coach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've done that.
Coach, a lot of people fired
a few
up.
times.
Wow. Very uncharacteristic vault for Simone, but it looked like she got almost lost in the air.
It's amazing.
But you're going to be just fine. I love you. You guys have strength your whole entire life for this. It's fine. I've been to an Olympics. I'll be fine. This is your first. You go out there and kick ass, okay?
All right. Chase, what do you got?
I think it's incredible the amount of composure she had, and that it's being recorded, knowing that everything that you say, everything you do is going to be broadcast around the world, and still having that level of dignity coming off the mat or whatever it is. But one thing I always teach in any course is pay attention to attention. When she walks over there, everyone is looking at her. The feet and shoulders are reorient to face her and in her direction. And everyone's genuinely attentive to what she's saying. And the only thing that I really notice here from a behavioral perspective is the speed that she doesn't normally move. Number one, her movement, but two, how fast she's ripping that thing off of her arm as if it can't happen fast enough. Not sure why. I don't even know what that thing is, some little white thing. But at the end, you can hear her voice cracking. And I think that really speaks to the behavior that's going on here. There's a mask, so it's a little bit hard to see the face, but we see her providing reassurance when she's stressed out. So she's becoming the light for other people, even when she's facing what she is. Greg?
Yeah, you can see a couple of things. Sorrow, even though she has a mask, that inner brow tilting up, that's sorrow. You can see she genuinely is apologetic. That brow's up constantly. And she uses her brow to talk, but not like that when she's trying to make sure these kids are getting the right message. And you heard her say earlier, she's a lot older than they are. She probably is kind of an authority figure to all of them, even if, never mind that she's branded the best, the greatest of all time, not the best in the world, the greatest of all time. If that's the case, you know that creates authority. And Chase, to your point, you can use this because when you walk in a room and you see everyone with all their weight on the balls of their feet forward, talking to each other, they all know each other. If you don't know each other, the person will have a tendency to lean back out of the circle. You can pick up on that tomorrow at work, assuming that you're back in the office. She shortens her words. If you notice her, she's clipped, clip, 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 clip. Her cadence is much different. And you can see she's emotional because she's moving more rigidly than she usually does. She's trying to get this point across and get moved. The interesting ones to me, and Chase, you hit it earlier about cameras, look behind her at the sea of cameras focusing in on her. It's amazing. I don't know who she's making eye contact with at the start. She makes a quick eye contact. I don't know if it's coach or somebody else. And then she talks to Michaela, the young woman who gets a medal out of going into this that would not have had the opportunity. And if you look at the other young lady right behind her, the taller young lady with her hair up on the top, her respiration's through the roof. I don't know if she just finished doing something or she just realized, we're losing her. But then the young woman, Michaela, who has her back to us, doesn't appear to be as panicked. Look at the coach and watch the coach looking into her eyes like, hey, you realize what this means, right? So it's kind of interesting to see all the dynamics and all the group. Group dynamics are powerful because we are first and foremost kind of herd animals. We need other people. And I think that's an important part of this. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so I think we're probably seeing a speed there that we hadn't seen before in her baseline. But just as you were suggesting, Scott, earlier on, like diction is still pretty good. So she holds it together. Chase is right. We hear that emotion and cracking in the voice. That's definitely there. But even with all of that, the rapidity, the diction is still there. The composure is still there. And I think that's something about her ability to compartmentalize emotions as they come. I think we hear that in other interviews with her, specifically around abuse and where she's able to place that stuff in a box somewhere or in a compartment so that it's not with her all the time and she's able to kind of shift it around. I think that's what's happening here. If I were to sum this up, this is like a mother sending out her kids and holding it together as she knows those kids are doing their first day at school. That's what it reminded me of, having, been there now and again at the school gates, seeing that happening. So I was fascinated by this, and I think it's quite moving what happens here. It would be so easy for somebody of her status, her stature to be, I guess, more self-centered and walk off and let the limelight follow her. What she does elegantly and brilliantly is manage the situation as a coach and this kind of leader, mother figure, and, send those kids off under the best circumstances. Just amazing to watch. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I think we're seeing leadership here. And we're seeing leadership shine. Jocko Willink wrote a book called Extreme,
Ownership.
Ownership, that's right, Extreme Ownership. I keep thinking leadership because all I think about when I see him is leadership. But Extreme Ownership, and it talks about owning things and how she's owning the whole thing where she understands that she's pulling herself out of it and she's explaining to everybody else, you can do this. That's the leadership part of it, the way she's going at that. We don't see her emotionally fall apart or do anything weird. She's just, it like makes her stronger. She comes across like all you guys were talking about. Her sentences are short, tight. Her words are short and tight. Her diction's spot on. And she's getting her point across and looking him right in the eye and saying, look, man, you can do this. You go ahead and do this. I've done this. I've been here before. Don't worry about me. Now it's your turn. That's the leadership part of it. I think she does a great job in that. And I think she'll go on to be a coach probably after this. And emotionally, she's not over the top. So I think that's pretty much everything we've all said, pretty much, summing it up.
You guys go out there and do what you're trained to do. I'm sorry. I love you guys, but you're going to be just fine. I love you. You guys have trained your whole entire life for this. It's fine. I've been to an Olympics. I'll be fine. This is your first. You go out there and kick ass, okay?
All right. Yep. Let's move along.
Simone, what did you tell everybody, your teammates? Because I know they were shocked when the news happened.
They were freaking out. They were like crying, and I was like, you guys need to relax. You're going to be fine without me. Go out there, you kick some butt just like you've done in training, and just lay it out on the floor and see what happens.
You kind of became a coach.
I did. I kind of like that a little bit more. I think I'm going to stay back now.
Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so we talk about group dynamic. You see that she is interacting with the other younger people there, and it's all bubbly. I mean, they're all happy to be together. If this were a rub, if there were a problem, you wouldn't see that same kind of behavior. These girls are giggly and have a lot of nervous laughter from the younger folks. And then she's genuine. She's full body illustrating. Both hands are up. She's moving around. And then the only time and her brows up, like she talks in her baseline, the only time she breaks eye contact is for recall, but even then she's still got that closing space with her eyes. She almost does that little head whipper thing when she says, I almost liked it better. It's kind of like, I kind of like that a little bit more, I think is what she says. She breaks eye contact for concentration. That's it. I think it's she's relaxed at this point. They've passed through this and they have gotten a medal. So this is a great opportunity for her to celebrate with her team. And you can see they're very bonded. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And the rest of her team's watching her the whole time. They're back and giving her room, and they're all looking at her and agreeing with her. And her messaging is strong. Again, it's the same thing. She's being the same person she was a few minutes ago. Her illustrators are on point. And they're strong as she's going through that. Do we see that? Everybody's going to go, oh, she's not sure what she's talking about because we saw the shoulder shrug. But the shoulder shrug is just when she says, let's see what's going to happen next. Who knows what's going to happen next? So that's why, hey, see what happens. So that's normal. And she's overall, she's relaxed. I think she handles this very well. Again, showing leadership here, and it shows by the girls watching her, how they're locked in on her and listening to her. So I think she'll be in charge one day. Chase, what do you got?
I want to get one of those masks first of all. Yeah. Those are those are really
super cool.
Yeah. And if I get a lead, I'll let you guys know. But I agree with you guys that team is all on her. The attention's on her. We see two of the girls, I'm just going to say girls, doing something that we see women do, most women and mostly women do, which is covering that lower part of the abdomen or where the uterus is. This is a genital protective behavior, and it's typically done when someone is being threatened, feeling vulnerable, or feeling insecure or unsure about something. And we see that there. The teammate of hers that's closest to her starts doing it the moment she says, you guys are going to be fine without me. Then her arms fold right there at her lower abdomen. You can see that amazing reaction there. And there is a triplicate anti-gravity gesture. And I want you to watch this again. The girls bounce her teammates bounce 1, 2, and 3 right at this little hint of good news. When she's talking about something positive right at the beginning, you can see them go 1, 2, 3. They all bounce in their feet in order. And then we see Simone do that. She starts bouncing up and down a little bit, which is another anti-gravity gesture, which denotes positivity the moment that she's talking about being a coach or becoming a coach. So I think that's what we might see in the future. Mark?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything said there. Look, really calm, really assertive. I mean, you may hear kind of bubbliness, but, given the baseline and the entertainer she is, and she is in this interview situation, she's being calm and assertive for her in this situation. Lots of downward inflection. I don't think I heard any upward inflection at all. And though, yes, Chase, you're right. Of course, upward inflection would be something to do with culturally for somebody of her age, where she's from as well. To have that much downward inflection means huge certainty about what she's saying. She's very clear, very strong, powerful eye contact as well. It would be hard for her to be more clear, more assertive around what she's saying there. And I think that the team responding to that as well. That's all I got for you.
Simone, what did you tell everybody, your teammates? Because I know they were shocked when this happened.
They were freaking out. They were like crying, and I was like, you guys need to relax. You're going to be fine without me. Go out there, you kick some butt just like you've done in training, and just lay it out on the floor and see what happens.
You kind of became a coach.
I did. I kind of like that a little bit more. I think I'm going to stay back now.
Cool. All right, everybody good?
Simone, what happened after the landing of your vault? Push the button, please. Yes, please.
I just felt like it would be a little bit better to take a back seat, work on my mindfulness, and I knew that the girls would do an absolutely great job, and I didn't want to risk the team a medal for kind of my screw-ups because they've worked way too hard for that. So I just decided that those girls need to go in and do the rest of the competition.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so some interesting stuff here. I think she's got these bubbly fingers, which I get this sense of there's a lot happening in her mind as she's answering this question, because the fingers are bubbling and then there's suppression gestures at the same time. So I think there could be a lot that she could say to expand around this very simple question that is put to her, but she's holding that down at the moment. On mindfulness, we get a very stress-based emotional breath there that I would only usually hear from people who are dealing with a big emotion about to come, or the holding down of a big emotion. I only generally hear that kind of breathing in therapy situations as a whole. I think the emotion there is potentially dealing with the panic, the fear. So that's panic breathing. It's the start of something panicky happening there. I think it has some kind of attachment to the fear that happened in midair within that vault. Eyebrow raise on screw up. I think that's the eyebrows of I recognize you. That I know you. So could be the recognition of her truly feeling she screwed up on this one, which again, for us sitting here is just extraordinary that she would see anything of that as a screw up. But of course, for her, it absolutely is. Chase, what do you have on this one?
Good points there. On the mindfulness piece, right when she says I need to work on the mindfulness, there's this powerful inhale into the chest. There's an upward tone shift. There is a fear micro expression if you watch this back. And finally, right there at this word, the humerus bones, these little bones right here, tuck back in, or one of them tucks back in towards the body, which suggests a fear response. Our body, if there's one thing our body does in response to fear, it's protecting arteries. That's what fear does to our bodies. And I think just talking about needing to work on something psychological, and I think talking about flaws and personal suffering is seriously either looked down upon, or she views it that way, that it's looked down upon. And I think that's what we're seeing here potentially, is that this is her response to the culture of how she grew up in gymnastics. And when she says my screw-ups, Mark, I absolutely agree that she says kind of my screw-ups with a little bit of an eye roll. And I think that that's just embarrassment. I think what's interesting here is that right at the end of this statement, at the end of the video, there's a confirmation glance towards the coach. Like she's still looking for some guidance or approval from the coach. But I think it's great. She's comfortable pulling her hand right off the microphone. I think this signals she's finished talking for sure. Doesn't keep hand right near the mic just in case there's another question coming. Pulls it right off of there. And I think the adjustment of the earpiece is likely a pacifying gesture. It's something that can be easily excused. Greg?
Yeah, I think she's apprehensive about how this mindfulness quote will be received, because all the things you pointed out, the arms, all of that, this inhalation at that point, and then there's a head retraction. If you notice, her head goes back. If you pay attention to that, we don't put our head in harm's way when we're thinking we're going to be attacked. So a head back, and her cadence shifts. It's unlike her to now. She does that hand down. She's moving her hand a little when she's talking about it. All of that's outside of her baseline. Doesn't matter what she's doing. It's all out of her baseline. Her cadence is shifted. She's then looking around. She looks over to her left for a little bit. I think she's not trying to figure out what to say. I think she's trying to figure out exactly what she should say and how to say it. So it's received well. It's not weakness. I mean, we all know that weakness in that business has to be perceived poorly, I would imagine. And it is, after all, a very big business. The Olympics are a very big business. People forget that at times. Then when she gets through that, she illustrates toward the girls with her head. We already know she likes them. I first of all, I was like, why does she make eye contact? But I think it's because she's too focused on the eyes that are on her. Then she purses her lips at the end of it to say, that's it, I'm done. She's finished with that comment. And then she goes down into her left, pretty solid. That's unlike when I talk about somebody going into internal dialogue. That's private space. I wonder if somebody talking to her in her ear and she's comprehending what they're saying, because her eyes glaze over, kind of. They're just detached from everybody in the room, and she's down as if she's listening to something. So it'd be interesting to know whether somebody's talking in her ear and that caused her to go to a space where she could concentrate. That's all I got. Scott, what do you got?
All right. I think she's a little bit nervous. This is the first question that's coming across to him. So that's why I think she's taking those deep breaths. That's why she's just showing nervousness. And that hand going, she gets that left hand doing all this. I think that's a combination of an illustrator and an adapter as well. I think the adapter, Chase, for the ear thing, I think watch this as we go through. She accidentally pulls it out a couple of times with her hand. She's moving her hand around a lot. That's when she starts goofing with that thing. So that might be what it is as well. And I think her head movements are kind of jerky. They're not as smooth as they were in her baseline when we saw them earlier. And when she's talking to her friends and those things, obviously she knows everybody all over the world is going to see what she's saying, and they're going to be listening to her and watching her. So that's what those little jerky movements are about, because she's stiffening up a little bit. And when she talks about being mindful, the mindfulness part, that's when that sounds a little bit odd. However, that's what those people do. And I say those people because they're not normal humans. No offense to them, but they're not normal. So there's no telling what they're doing up in here. So she's thinking about, I'm sure she does that whole meditation thing where she watches herself go through each step and each thing. So I bet that's what she's talking about, because people refer to meditation as mindfulness and how that mixes in with everyday life. So I think that's what she's talking about there. The mindfulness for it. That's why it sounds odd, because she probably doesn't talk about that very often in those situations, or any situation really, except when she's talking to other teammates and explaining what she does or how to go about doing something or how to fix something or how to become better as she's coaching them. And I agree with you guys on all that stuff. So I'm pretty much good to go on that.
Mm-hmm. And the only thing I can equate that to is when I get on a horse, if there's something that's off, I'm out of there, because you can get seriously injured or killed. So imagine if you're got to hurl through the air, if your body and mind and all that stuff aren't connected. Can only imagine.
Simone, what happened after the landing of your vault? Push the button, please. Yes, please.
I just felt like it would be a little bit better to take a back seat, work on my mindfulness, and I knew that the girls would do an absolutely great job, and I didn't want to risk the team a medal for kind of my screw-ups, because they've worked way too hard for that. So I just decided that those girls need to go in and do the rest of the competition.
Okay.
Sorry. No injury, thankfully, and that's why I took a step back, because I didn't want to do something silly out there and get injured. So I thought it was best if these girls took over and did the rest of the job, which they absolutely did. They're Olympic silver medalists now, and they should be really proud of themselves for how well they did last minute having to go in. And it's been really stressful, this Olympic Games. I think just as a whole, not having an audience, there are a lot of different variables going into it. It's been a long week. It's been a long Olympic process. It's been a long year. So just a lot of different variables, and I think we're just a little bit too stressed out. But we should be out here having fun, and sometimes that's not the case.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Well, we see another huge inhale here right when she is getting to this new data point, trying to calm herself down. And when she's saying the rest of the job, we see a chin thrust here, where I think there may be some dissatisfaction with not being able to participate in that. I'm not sure. We cannot be sure. None of us are mind readers. None of us. And when she says last minute, they're coming in, they're having to jump in right at the last minute. There's a tiny fear micro expression where the sternocleidomastoid muscles kind of jump at. It's kind of the biggest movement that we see in the fear facial expression. There's no visual contact to the girls that she's talking about, but I think this is the cameras and the onlookers. There's 100 eyes in front of her. There's only a couple beside her that she's referring to. When she talks about things like being stressed out and not having fun, she spends the entire statement saying I, speaking about herself. And the moment we go to stressed out, it's we get stressed out. We should be having fun and we are not. And what this is, this pronoun shift is distancing. So it's not just me. I'm making sure that other people own this too. I think this is just another thing that speaks to the culture that she's obviously spoken on record about with Megyn Kelly, of where we need to hide these things. We need to hide things that are stressful or make us look weak at all. So she stops talking about herself. I think it's another great thing right at the end where she does a confirmation glance right back to the coach and looks back to the coach to make sure that he doesn't have anything. Scott?
All right. Yeah, I agree with you about the coach, because she does that several times throughout this, throughout these videos. We'll see, sort of checking in and make sure she's saying the right stuff, or not saying the right stuff, but showing that she's saying the right thing. Her illustrators, she's not using them as much as she has been, again, because she's locking down a little bit as she's keeping straight what she's going to say, because it's really important that she says everything she's supposed to in the correct fashion, and the structure has to be correct as she goes through this, because I can't remember somebody backing out when they're in a spot like this before and taking themselves out of something. So she's got to watch what she says so nobody goes, see, she's not, she's doing it for another reason. When she says, do the rest of the job, her head goes back. I think that's an adapter, actually, because of all the nerves and stuff she's got going on. I think it's just to pop off of that, the energy she's got stored up in there. Some people say it's arrogance or she's thinking something else. But for me, that's what I'm seeing. I've seen that before, and I know what that looks like. But so don't confuse that with arrogance or confidence. The deep breath I took a step back. I think it was tough for her to take herself out. Again, another leadership thing where she said, this isn't good for us. So she's taking herself out so it helps the team. I mean, this is that book, the Jocko Willink book. This is the whole thing's about. She's doing what's good for the team. But she didn't want to take herself out, but she did anyway. That's tough. So she's got all those emotions running through there. She's talking about these emotions from almost a third-person perspective as she talks about it in first person. So it's really a fascinating study if you want to get into what she's going through mentally here. But like Chase said, I don't know. We're not mind readers. That's just what it looks like to me personally. So, all right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So let me explore these possibilities. This sharp intake of breath around step back. Is it her remembering that terror in the air? Because I think, we definitely see huge fear when she comes off of that vault. I can't expect that being fearful in the air or having terror in the air must be any part of being successful in this. So my guess is that might have been quite a new experience for her, or one that she hadn't had for a long, long time. And so I think she's suppressing that panic. Is it that, or is it around saying that you are going to step back is something that she has never done, she would never do, and now there she is saying she's going to step back? I mean, if you're the greatest of her kind on the planet, do you think thinking about stepping back is anything you ever do? My guess would be it's always about stepping forward rather than stepping back. So is it panic around this new idea of stepping back? I don't know. As Chase says, we're not mind readers. We're trying to offer a bunch of different options that can be chosen from, and with other bits of intelligence come closer to what the truth might be of this, rather than be, a media that just kind of has an agenda, throws out ideas that fits the agenda, and that gets consumed as entertainment. Last minute, as well as what you were saying there, Chase, of this fear micro gesture that goes on there, I see a vocal click afterwards. Again, I think there's something really important about this last minute decision of not taking part. Again, I don't think that's part of the culture. I don't think it's part of the culture that at the last minute you go, hey, Off you go. I'm out of this. It's your go now. I think this is totally out of the cultural norm. She knows that, and she's breaking some of her own rules around what the culture is. I think this is just an extraordinary situation for her and gymnastics, because there is nobody better on the planet than her. She sets the tone. And I think there must be some worry here about is she setting the wrong tone here? I don't see how, from my point of view, how she ever could. But, I think those are her fears. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, so again, she does an intake breath on step back. Her hand slightly rises. That tells you something's going on in her head at that moment. Something's off of her baseline. We can't tell what. If I were interrogating, I would pay attention. And if you are sitting in a boardroom and somebody does that, it means something. It means pay attention. Something has changed in their head. When she says, and what I have written down here is, the person is showing through the superwoman here. These are athletic people, but they're still human beings. Same exact kind of behaviors and patterns that you have. So when she says they should be proud, she does an emphatic with her hand down. When she gets to this last minute place, I hear a bunch of stuff there. I hear vocal click, as you said, word pattern shift and change. She does a swallow and a chin drop, and she makes hard eye contact with somebody off stage. I don't think that's the coach. I think that's somebody who has used those words or something like that. It's a feeling. Whatever is the anchor that she's looking off to, there's a reason she's looking. So we pay attention to that. I think that's the sore point in this entire thing, is that last minute. Then when she starts to talk about stress and all of that, her blink rate increases. And that blink rate increase when you're talking about stress is because what our brains do best is remember why we're stressed. And when you bring up the word of stress, then it starts to happen. It's how you talk yourself back onto the ledge if you're not careful. So you got to pay attention with those words. That means for you, when you're stressed, don't talk about how stressed you are, because it makes you more stressed and makes it worse. That's just a short trick. That's all I got.
Sorry. No, no injury, thankfully, and that's why I took a step back, because I didn't want to do something silly out there and get injured. So I thought it was best if these girls took over and did the rest of the job, which they absolutely did. They're Olympic silver medalists now, and they should be really proud of themselves for how well they did last minute having to go in. And it's been really stressful, this Olympic Games, I think, just as a whole, not having an audience. There are a lot of different variables going into it. It's been a long week. It's been a long Olympic process. It's been a long year. So just a lot of different variables, and I think we're just a little bit too stressed out. But we should be out here having fun, and sometimes that's not the case.
Excellent.
You come off, you talk to Marcia for a little bit, right? I'm trying to figure out, you said they would, when back over there, you said they wouldn't let me go back out there, but did you go to them? Did you tell them, hey, I can't do this? Or did they tell you maybe you should take a break? Or how did it specifically go?
So I was like, I think the girls need to do the rest of the competition without me. And they were like, I promise you, you're fine. We watched you warm up. And I said, no, I know I'm going to be fine, but I can't risk a medal for the team. So I need to call it. And, you usually don't hear me say things like that, because I'll usually persevere and push through things, but not to cost the team a medal. So they were like, okay, well, if Simone says this, then we need to take it pretty serious. And so I had the correct people around me to do that.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this is different to her baseline. Something here would make me want to question why her baseline has changed. Her cadence is very, very, very different. You can hear it, and she doesn't and anywhere else we've heard. She adapts at her ear. Now, Chase, I think you brought it up earlier. She's messing with her earpiece. It could just be that. She does a one shoulder up when she's talking about this. She does what I call sacred space, and we haven't seen that yet. She crosses her hands together and even mills her fingers a little bit. There's some stress from something going on here. We can't tell. We would ask questions. That cadence shift, that her brow moves differently. She even purses her lips a little. Maybe there's some disgust that shows up, just a slight little bit of it. But there's something going on here that we haven't seen yet. So we'd want to know, we'd want to say, what exactly happened, Simone? Now, I'm sure we are not going to get the gist of what happens. And maybe it's just because of the interchange was not what she wanted it to be. She didn't want to do it. We can't tell. But what we can see is a big deviation in the baseline and how this thing works. Chase, what do you got?
right when she says, "I need to call it," we see pursed lips with the single shoulder shrug that you were mentioning, right when she says, "I need to call it." And I think there is still some hesitancy with this decision at this point. Obviously, it was just made. There is distaste mouth movement all around the idea of her making the decision. And if you think of the word decision, the Latin word of the word decision means to cut something completely off. And I think that's weighing pretty heavily on her. And you can see this right when you watch it back. There's a shift of referential index again, if you want to go look that up. She says, "You usually don't hear me say things like that," instead of "I don't usually say things like that." And this is either A, distancing is one way to use it, or B, to make someone more likely to identify and understand and socialize what's being said. Mark?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Agree with everything that I've heard there. There's definitely something up around "I need to call it." I agree. I see disgust. I think I see some disdain as well. Disdain being social. So disdain being something about you're not part of the group anymore. Now, clearly this is Team USA, and that's super important. And you've got the individual, Simone, there at the same time. How do you manage the two things? How do you manage the individual, yourself, and how do you manage being part of the team? Especially when, the USA being so successful came out of the dominance of the Soviet Union in gymnastics, and this ideal in the Soviet Union at the time of it being all about the team, never about the individual. And Simone is such a huge star. How do you balance the two things of you've got Team USA, phenomenally successful, but partly because they have an incredible athlete and individual as part of that team. So I think there's that cultural element there of disdain going, by leaving the team, I've done something socially irrevocable. Essentially, I've ousted myself from society. And there might be an element there of, and that's defeat. That means defeat. And for somebody who's an athlete at her level, I'm sure defeat is just not an option, is it? I'm sure it's something you fight against all the time. So amazing to see that. I want to give one last thought as I was watching that, which was to note that Simone and I use the same type of microphone. I just want to throw that in there just so I can have some kind of link with a human being at her level, just to say, yeah, we use the same mic.
Totally relevant.
Totally relevant. Totally relevant. Just raising my status there. Greg, what do you got on this one? Oh, sorry, Scott. What do you got on this one?
So I think when she says "well" at the top and her lip and her tongues come up through her lips, I think she's just prepping to talk. A lot of people say, whatever they're going to say about that, but I think that's what's happening there. And then again, she looks to somebody, like I think Greg was saying, she looks to somebody for that reassurance. So she looks at maybe it's one of her coaches to connect with them that she's going down the right road, or that gives her confidence to look at them and connect with them. The pursed lips, good call, Greg, because I think after that, we're seeing that as a micro expression. It's showing frustration and maybe disagreement with what she's talking about. This, for me, was the most interesting part of the entire discussion they're having there, of her questions. A lot going on. Her head's moving around, and that's when we see that head bobbing around. I think she's buying some time so she gets the structure of her story straight before she starts talking about it. A lot of thinking going on. I'm trying not to cover everything you guys have done. And she's got her posture straight up, and she's ready for an answer. So she's prepped for this. This one's a touchy subject for her. So I think we're seeing all the little hallmarks of that. Let us know something's up here. Not that she's not being honest. I think she's being honest, but I think it's nerve-wracking for her because with the situation she's in. I think it bothers her. So I'll leave it there since you guys got most everything else.
You come off, you talk to Marcia for a little bit, right? I'm trying to figure out, you said they would, back over there, you said they wouldn't let me go back out there, but did you go to them? Did you tell them, hey, I can't do this? Or did they tell you maybe you should take a break? Or how did it specifically go?
So I was like, I think the girls need to do the rest of the competition without me. And they were like, I promise you you're fine. We watched you warm up. And I said, no, I know I'm going to be fine, but I can't risk a medal for the team, so I need to call it. And you usually don't hear me say things like that because I'll usually persevere and push through things, but not to cost the team a medal. So they were like, okay, well, if Simone says this, then we need to take it pretty serious. And so I had the correct people around me to do that.
We good?
Yeah.
Good.
So was that the first time? So this wasn't the first time you've been in a competition and were like, man, I'm not sure I'm in this today.
Yes. Today has been really stressful. We had a workout this morning. It went okay. And then just that 5.5 hour wait or something, I was just like shaking, could barely nap. I've just never felt like this going into a competition before. And I tried to go out here and have fun and warm up in the back, went a little bit better. But then once I came out here, I was like, no, mental is not there. So I just need to let the girls do it and focus on myself.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, just one thing on that. It went okay. And then I think we see both incisors come up. I think we see the fear smile from her. Again, the terror comes back. And I think we get a verbatim answer here of very clear that this is something she hasn't experienced before. This terror in the air is, and this mindset is totally new for her. That's all I got on that one. Scott, what do you got?
That sounds like a movie, Terror in the Air.
Terror in the Air.
Wow.
Like snakes on a plane, but worse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dumbest
So her
movie
posture's
ever made.
straight. She's set up. She's ready to go. Everything. She looks confident. Everything's going smoothly. She doesn't have to really defend anything here. There's nothing to defend, so she's not going any kind of defense move. She does show concern in her eyebrows when she says warm up went a little better. And it shows she's a little bit worried about that, or might not have gone as well as she'd hoped, and that sort of strengthened her fear in what was happening. But overall, she's delivering with confidence. It looks good and still communicating well. That diction's spot on. The one I've been watching is that one there on the far right, that little one back there, just all cocked back in that chair. I don't know what she's thinking. She's really not paying attention half the time. So I know what she's doing.
She won a gold medal. That's probably
That's probably right.
Yeah,
I would
right
be
off.
like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, she looks disinterested. Yeah, but look at her when it comes back. She's just all like, I guess I'd be doing that too. Well, she'd have
Yeah, I
the
would.
whole time.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, my gold medal. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, that's what gets you on the Wheaties box.
Yeah.
That's what I would be picturing at that moment. I'd be like, what is my pose going to be? I'm going to do that. So right here, we see her discussion of stress again, and she shifts the pronoun to we as a team about stress. So she's sharing stress. We could call it that. And when she says it went okay, there's an immediate micro expression of disgust or maybe distaste that we see here. And I'll cover everything else in the wrap up. Greg?
Yeah, I'm going to be very short here. You see her when she first starts to a little bump when they said, is this the first time this happened to you? Yes. And then she moves over and she touches her chest, and some people would say, oh, she's being dishonest because she's touching here. But she's illustrating. She's saying, never me. She's just illustrating. You got to pay attention because context is everything. If you ask a person a question, they say, no, why would you ask? Different story than never me. And her cadence is hers until she gets to that no piece where she's talking about the fact that the practice didn't go as well as she'd hoped. And Mark, I saw the same thing. I saw her incisors showing. So It's either aggression, which in this case we don't think it is, or all of our chimp cousins do that out of fear. So There we go. That's all I got.
So was that the first time? So this wasn't the first time you've been in a competition and were like, man, I'm not sure I'm in this today.
Yes. Today has been really stressful. We had a workout this morning. It went okay. And then just that 5.5 hour wait or something, I was just like shaking, could barely nap. I've just never felt like this going into a competition before. And I tried to go out here and have fun and warm up in the back, went a little bit better. But then once I came out here, I was like, no, mental is not there. So I just need to let the girls do it and focus on myself.
Hi, Simone. Can you talk a little bit about how Naomi Osaka inspired you? And do you have a message for any other athletes who are struggling with mental health issues?
Yeah, I say put mental health first, because if you don't, then you're not going to enjoy your sport and you're not going to succeed as much as you want to. So it's okay sometimes to even sit out the big competitions, to focus on yourself, because it shows how strong of a competitor and person that you really are, rather than just battle through it.
Oh, well, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this simple. My only note says back to her baseline. She's back to talking normally. The only thing I see different is she's a little barriered because of where she's seated and she has her arms down. And that's that. I just see this is her own message. She's delivering a message that she feels is important. She's not real demonstrative. She does nod a little bit, like, I want you to agree. That's about it. That's what I see. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So again, that emotional breath on the idea of mental health. And then I think I see disgust on how strong a person you are. My guess around this is that let's just say it, I think she is disgusted in herself that she dropped out. It is not something she would ever see herself as doing. So personally, I think it goes against the values, the ideals that she's had about an athlete of her quality and also herself. So what an extraordinary thing to go through where you know, to manage the idea that you're dropping out of this, regardless of everything that she said about doing the right thing and mental health. I'm not sure she totally believes in that herself yet. I think there's some reproach against herself. I think, you know, that's something she's going to need to deal with herself. I think personally she shouldn't have it. I think she's just astonishing. But, you know, that's her. What an amazing human being. Chase, what do you got?
Imposter syndrome is always more rampant at the top.
Yep.
And because one of the best quotes I've ever learned about knowledge, and it's probably the same with athletics, is the more you know how little you know. And we're seeing that here. And the whole time that she is going through this statement, we see her arms crossed. And you can go look up 1,000 articles on what arm crossing means. I typically dismiss it altogether. But there's one thing that's important to look at if someone's crossing their arms is whether or not their fingers are relaxed or their fingers are kind of digging into their arm. That's a pretty good data point. Her fingers are very relaxed here. She's going right back to her baseline. And we're seeing her get more comfortable. So crossed arms does not always mean that a person's stress is increased or anything like that. So this could be just a comfort display for her.
One question. What do you call that when they grip their arms? Remember, people are playing bingo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to do it for the bingo.
It's called digital flexion. Digital flexion, everybody.
All right. Good. All right. What I'm seeing there, I agree with all you guys. She's going right back to her baseline. It's that simple. And we're seeing, and things, she's been through a roller coaster of emotions during this. So that's why we're seeing her try to relax. And she's getting, and you're right, Chase, when you're speaking with someone, if you're interrogating them or you're just interviewing or talking to them, take a look at the space between their fingers. If there's a lot of space, man, they're relaxed and all that going on. But if once you start talking, that space begins to disappear and those fingers start to come together, whether it's on their arm or by their sides or on the table, wherever it is, that's when the stress is starting to build. Those fingers get a little closer in there. That's all I got on that one, fellas. I can't add anything to that.
Hi, Simone. Can you talk a little bit about how Naomi Osaka inspired you? And do you have a message for any other athletes who are struggling with mental health issues?
Yeah, I say put mental health first, because if you don't, then you're not going to enjoy your sport and you're not going to succeed as much as you want to. So it's okay sometimes to even sit out the big competitions, to focus on yourself, because it shows how strong of a competitor and person that you really are, rather than just battle through it.
All right, so let's do this. Let's throw it around the room very quickly. It's everybody. We'll go Mark, Chase, Greg, then I'll end it. And we'll say what we think is a wrap up. What our thoughts are on it. Mark, what do you got?
Okay, so this is the behavior of somebody extraordinary when something extraordinary happens to them. That's all I can say is like, this is the best in the world, and something has happened to her that has never happened before. And this is how she manages it. And I think you'll agree, it's extraordinary, the poise and the leadership, as Scott's been saying, that she manages herself in this situation. You know, if something happened to you that you'd never experienced before, which destroys much of what you stand for and how you deal with your work and your life, would you be dealing with it like she's dealing with it? I know I probably wouldn't. I don't know what I'd be doing. So just amazing. Chase, what do you got on this one?
I think we're seeing somebody here who's extremely self-critical. And I think this is becoming more pervasive in our society. Maybe it's just that we're getting to know about it more. But if this is you, or if Simone is watching this, and I can't imagine watching a video of people breaking your behavior down, even if you're truthful, I think it would be uncomfortable. But if this is you, if you're that kind of person, if somebody else spoke to you the way you speak to yourself, you would probably knock their teeth out. So this is your chance. It's very easy. You can start talking to yourself differently today. Greg?
Yeah, I think we see a great baseline for her in the beginning. She engages. She's very tightly tied to people. I think people love to talk to her. I would bet that anybody who's met her truly loves to talk to her. And we can see the kind of face shift, her posture, everything about her changes at this time. Now, this is just showing you a human being who is capable of doing amazing feats of strength, who is just being a human being. And all that pressure that she puts on herself that causes her to be this superwoman of doing all this stuff is starting to build on her. And you can't escape pressure you put on yourself is the biggest problem. So I think we're seeing stress come out. We start to see her body language shift. You see a different face than you saw most of the time with her talking. This is a great example. She talks about mental health. As I said early in the thing, if your pilot came out and said, I don't know which end's up, but I'm going to fly anyway, you would probably say, oh, hell no. But we are expecting her to do this as a sport. I think this is a great example for us to look at. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect example of leadership. I mean, she comes out and just like, I keep going back to Jocko Willing's book, but she comes out and owns it all. She's like, yeah, she doesn't ever say, our problem, or everybody has this. No, she says, we are stressed. She does that. She says, this is my thing. I'm taking me out. I'm doing this. And she tells them, I'm sorry I'm doing this, but you can do it. She never once puts any blame on anybody else but herself.
And it would have been easy. It would have been easy.
Oh, it would have been so simple. Here's what they here's what they told me to do.
They told me to sit down.
Yeah, so I can't. I want to, but I just can't. No. So that goes along with what she is, though. If she's the best ever, then that would fall right in line with her being in the leadership thing. She'd be awesome there as well. So I think that's dang hats off to her for that. You know, that's tough, man. It's tough to own it all like that. So yeah, that's a big move. That's a big move. So that's great. All right. Well, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe and hit the like button and hit the little red bell so it'll let you know when we have a new one come out. So, all right. Well, I think we good?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Good, fellas.
Bye.
See you.
The behavior panel.
I think we need our own gymnastics team.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys do. I'll take the floor exercise, and by that I mean I sit on the floor and watch you guys.
I'd do the beam. Here's what I would do. And if you guys can get up enough money to do for me to do this, you know, like take a bet, I'll do this. That beam that she's flopping around, I'll climb up on that beam and walk across it to the end, then jump off. Just jump straight up, just walk right off it. If you guys can get $1,500, who's in?
Do you have to finish the task, or if you fall?
I'll climb up on the beam by myself. I will climb up it, walk down it, and then jump off it.
I've got $1,500 that says you can't even get on the beam. Okay.
Para